Library Pocket with Buses. This library pocket is now ready to be loaded and used as one of my swap pockets. Don't forget to check out our Facebook group.
And then the other side of that island where I had all the paper on the other side, over here is where I house
commenting, and subscribing to
all of my rubber stamps. These shelves that we're looking at right now, my dad did create for me about 20 years ago.
Here's a view of our lake off of our dock.
So
as I start to pan the camera, I notice a deer in the woods and zoom in for a closer look.
He made them for me. And at the time, I was kind of a poor college student, and there were a lot of companies selling stamp shelves, but of course I couldn't afford them, so he made them for me. And what's cool about these is he did make the majority of it out of recycled wood.
We do live in a quiet bay and are fortunate enough to have only a couple of other cabins in the area.
I think the only thing that we had to buy was the base, but everything else is recycled wood. But again, for those that are interested in the categories, so I categorize all of my stamps by themes. So this drawer is kind of more my birthday type rubber stamps. The next drawer is like sympathy and get well. I have several drawers of like sentiments, so like thank yous and thinking of you drawers, those kind of things. I do have drawers that have like floral themes, I have holidays, I have nautical, I have people stamps. This last sets of drawers over here on the far right, I don't think a lot of people know on YouTube, because this was before YouTube, but I used to do a lot of stampscapes or scenic stamping, so most of those drawers, or at least half of them, are like scenic or scene building type stamps. And so those are those stamps there. Up here on top of these shelves, I kind of use as my cutting station. So I have my paper cutter, and I like to cut my paper with, I have a Carl cutter paper. I do like this one. Here I have a little basket where I put masking tape, which I use for attaching my paper to my cutting dies. And here, sometimes I just stamp extra. When I have just a little bit left on the paper that I'm running through my die cut, I'll stamp a word or cut a word or something, and I'll just throw them in there. They're just extras. My little Spellbinders tool. Then I also have this little shelf here, or this little thing that it moves. And what I like to do with this is, I'll put, if I'm using laces or trims for something I'm working on, I'll pull them out and just stick them in here and then set them on my desk when I'm working. And then I'll put them back in here, and then when I get a chance, I'll put them away. So that kind of moves around my craft room. On the back of that lace thing, if you guys look here, I did put some magnets up here, and then I attached some of my cutting dies. There's someone else on YouTube, a couple people that do this, and they actually put them all on their wall. I didn't have a lot of wall space, but I did attach it on the back of this. And so any current dies I'm using, I'll throw up here just so I don't have to keep on taking them out of my binder sleeves that I use. I usually have a couple of like the tag dies up, and then usually a couple of my Memory Dex ones, just because I use those a lot. Right now it's pretty empty because I had to take them all down for when I was cleaning my room, but I'll be putting some more back up again. So over here is where I have my cutting machine. So I use, this is a Craftwell embosser machine. That's what I use to cut. And I just pull it forward when I need it. Otherwise it just sits back there. Underneath the little shelf system, you can see these two little totes right here. I do color coordinate my scrap paper and stick them in there. So I have white, red, orange, etc. all the way back. In between these two, I have my cutting plates that I need. And then I have little envelopes, clear envelopes like this that I stick some of my more decorative paper in that are paper scraps. And I kind of have them by themes that I use a lot. Like this one's my shabby chic one. So I'll use that one. And then if you guys follow my No Leftover Paper Scrap series, this is usually where I grab out of one of these folders or little file things. Those are what I grab when I do that to use up paper scraps. Most of the paper, not all, but most of the paper in these bags are just cardstock. I do have a few miscellaneous sheets in there. But most of it is cardstock. So the next shelf, I have some of those little containers like this that I separate out charms and different things. So this one's more of vintage themed charms that I just showed you guys. I do have one that's kind of junk journal stuff, like book corner stuff that I might use on junk journals. The next one's like my cabochons and acrylic flower pieces. I have some like hardware pieces in there, just different charms. So then here's some miscellaneous stuff that I just didn't find homes for yet, so they're just sitting there. A while ago I bought a jar of bingo cards, and so I do have those bingo pieces to use as embellishments. And then I do keep a lot of my little ephemera pieces in these containers here, and they house a whole bunch of little containers. So I'm going to pull one off to show you guys. Iris is the brand. Yeah, Iris. And you buy these, I've seen them at, I think I've seen them at Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby. I did buy mine at Michael's one of the times when they had all their storage stuff really cheap. It was like 60% off or something. And so you can see I have these filled. And I'll pull one out, and I do have them labeled, or a lot of them labeled on the side of what's in them. And this was because in the past I had them all just sitting on the shelf like this. I didn't have them in their containers, but I found that I could store more if I put them back in their containers. So I am going to move the labels to the front side so that when I look down at it I can see them. But for now, like this one's a Paris themed. And so when I open up a sticker sheet or one of my ephemera packs, and if I use the majority of it, then I stick the other little pieces in here. And so what I try and do when I work on a card or a journal or any project, if I know it's a theme that I have one of these for, I grab this and I try and use stuff out of this first before I open up anything new. And so these containers do change based on what kind of pieces or extras I have left over. And so that's kind of those containers. So I have 3 of those. So, and then this one I do color coordinated ephemera. So, you know, red, brown, yellow, green. So if I'm working on something that's red and I need something red and it doesn't really matter what it is, I'll look to see if I have anything in that little pile. This one right here, I keep like the little wood embellishments. Like the little, I have little birds and little butterflies, those kind of things. I keep in that one. If you go up to the next shelf, I keep like chipboard pieces. I have like smaller envelopes. I have some store-bought cards that I give out every once in a while. The next shelf up in the photo boxes I store, and someday I think I'm going to change over to clear boxes for those. But I have embellishments that I have made and I give people out. And then also a lot of people participated in my challenge and made me embellishments. So I stuck them in there. And I do use them, so I do try and pull those out. I do need to label them, but again, my label maker kind of needs more stickers in it to work. Up at the very top, I do have some more drawers. And up there I have like one drawer has my glossy paper in it that's extra. I have some shrinky-dink type material up there. One of the drawers is I had a friend that passed away a while ago. And so I did get some of her paper, her 8.5 by 11 like decorative specialty paper. And so I did stick it in one of those drawers. So every time I use it, I kind of remember that it came from her. So I do keep that separated. The next set of shelves over here, I keep like my cutting die stuff. So in these boxes, which I'm going to label, I have my little Sizzix or Tim Holtz dies. The little bit bigger ones I keep on top. And I hope to add little sticker labels on the sides here so then I can see what they are easier. Here's the longer dies like that. I keep some extra cutting plates. Next shelf up, envelopes. I do have wax paper because sometimes I like to use that when I do mixed media stuff and just to keep stuff clean off of my desk. I'll put down a sheet of wax paper. The next shelf up, if you look, I have some scrapbook albums. I have just some miscellaneous stuff. This is just extra, like when I buy those Hobby Lobby and I get good deals on the big yard or trims by the yard, and so I have extras. I'll stick them in here. So I do look at that when I do give people stuff. I look and see what I have in there because those are all extras. I do have a couple binders, which I'll show you in a minute, of my cutting dies. Way at the top, as you guys can see, the top two shelves again, full of paper. It's off-season paper, other theme paper, or else like when you go to Tuesday morning and you buy a whole pack and they're 25 sheets exactly the same. I'll take 3 or 4 out, put them in my other paper rack, and I'll put the extras up there. And so when I use them all, I'll just grab more from up there. The next little totes that you guys see, I have like my journaling cards that I use in scrapbook pages and albums and my junk journals. Off to the right here, this is like the vintage rickrack and seam binding that I find at the thrift store. Above that, I have a little tote where I put stamped images. So if I stamp and color something and I don't use it, I throw it in there. If someone gifts me some stamped images, I throw them in there so that I have them. If I'm looking for something to do, I'll take those out and just color or something. The next shelf, I have my old Cuttlebug, which I still use once in a while. One of my binders for cutting dies. And then all my other cutting die binders, which is how I store my my die cuts, my cutting dies. And I'll take one of them out and show you guys. So I do put them all in zippered binders. And I started this way back when because I used to teach classes and travel a lot, and I would take some of my supplies with me. And I just found that if I put my cutting dies in here, at least if they fell out of their sleeves, they were protected and I didn't lose them. So that's how I store mine. And I put them on magnet sheets inside of clear plastic sleeves. And so I do have on most of them, I will try and put the labels. So MB stands for memory box, and it's called Twirl and Vine frame. That one's just a half sheet, but I have some that are full sheets, and again, I just kind of label them up. On the back sides of these, I do try and put like the actual packaging that they come in if I can. I try and keep that. So this whole binder that we're looking at is kind of like foliage and flowers, that kind of stuff. Some of my other themes, because again, I had people asking about the themes for my organization. Like I have vintage, I have sentiments. I have one that has all just my basic shapes and labels from like Spellbinders, the nestability dies. I have one that has like my envelopes and tags and pockets in it. I have one that has mechanical cards, one that has Christmas, one that has the other holidays. So those are some of the themes that I have. So now if you look down from there, this big plastic container contains all of my embossing folders, and I keep them in these sleeves. Way back when they actually were in a binder, but I outgrew the binder system because you could only fit like about 4 or 5 of these sleeves in the binder that came with them. And so I just found it too expensive, so I just kept on buying the sleeves. And I can't remember, might have been the Cuttlebug Provo Craft that put out these. And you can fit 4 in a side, which I like. So I do have these sorted in here kind of by theme again, in each one. And then here, in this one are some of my newer ones that I haven't organized yet. And then some of the embossing folders that you get are too tall for these, so then I just keep them kind of in the back. You guys can kind of see. And then right here I have a little tote. These are all the weird or off-brand, like the quick cuts. I don't have very many of them, but I do have a couple of them, that brand ones in there. So I just keep them in there for now. I'm going to back up again. So now, again, I have some more totes right here of all of my different rubber stamps. Unmounted ones are in there. This one is just some of the unmounted ones that I need to actually organize and put into the little sleeves. So that's what's in here, and then eventually I'll be able to get rid of this whole tote system there after I get those organized. And I have one more rubber stamp shelf with the wood stamps in them. This stamp shelf I purchased used at the Habitat Restore. And I think whoever owned it before, they had maps, or it was like an architect or somebody that had built them, and they used them for maps. But they fit my rubber stamps in them. So I'll open up this drawer. So it's similar to my other one. Someday I would like to sand it and paint it a different color. But for now it works. And then for my local crafty friends, if you happen to be watching this, I do own one more shelf set that looks exactly like this rubber stamp set. Or this gray one right here. If you guys are interested, I am going to be selling that one. So if any of my local friends are watching and you're interested in that, let me know. On the door, I have right here, if you guys remember from before, my laundry room is on the other side. But I do hang up, they're over the door shoe holder racks. And so what I do with those is I actually put my punches in them. And so I have two on this side of the door, and then I have one hanging on the back side, and that one's just of my like border punches. And I often move these and rearrange them all the time, just depending upon what I'm working on. And like if I have some Christmas ones, they move more up to the top and that kind of thing. So then I'm back to this area again. So I'll just back up so you can kind of see it. Okay, this little sector, again, was cupboards that were already in this room when we purchased the house. And so if you look way on the top, I do have some stuff stored up there. I have one tote, which I'm calling my PhD tote, projects half done. So it's projects I need to finish. I have a tote up there that has Christmas in it. I have a Halloween. I have a Valentine's Day. So that kind of stuff is up there. Just extra stuff for those themes are up there. Again, I have a sink, which I love. I keep paper towels next to there. This little filing system. In the little manila folders here, I keep like my junk journal. Like if I'm working on a kit or I printed off a kit, I'll put it in there. If I have extra pieces, I have them in there. And I have another filing system in the other room in the closet of different themes and stuff that I can use in my junk journals. Right here, if you look at this, this is an old like electrical thing that my dad found for me. Up at the top, I keep like my pocket pages for pocket letters, and then my clear plastic sleeves for my die cuts. And I have some extra little chipboard that I keep up there sometimes when I use for my embellishment making. But if you open up these, it's all the old labels from whoever owned it before, the electrical labels. But I do have miscellaneous embellishments, like here's some bells that I can use at Christmas time. There's some clothespins. I do have some bling in here. So I do need to do a little bit better job of organizing this. So that's kind of on my to-do list. But so that's what that is. I'm going to back up and open up some of the cupboards. So this cupboard, again, I have things in totes. The very top, I use like an old tackle box system, and I store all my beads and my beading stuff up there, my jewelry making stuff. The next couple shelves are more like the lace and trim type stuff. It's like the appliques and the doilies. My little snippets I keep in here. I have some felt up there. Right here is just some appliques that I just took off of a wedding dress, so I need to put those into this container. I have some cheesecloth. There's some doilies in that one. My next cupboard is kind of more of the same, except my bottom shelf is where I store all my graphic 45 paper, so I have that there. And I tried to, on the outsides, write down the names of them so they're easier to grab if I'm looking for a particular one. The next shelf, again, is just some more material. And the very top shelf are my re-inkers for my stamp pads, and so I just store them up there. The next shelf, the top shelf right now, I think I just have a pencil case, but that one's empty because I do store like a lot of my current projects on like trays. And so if I'm working on something and then I start another project and that one needs to dry, I'll just stick it up there on a tray to dry. It's just so it's out of the way. The next one is just more material. And this one, if I move this basket, you can just see I have some little more storage things. In here I have like X-Acto blades, and I have the cutter blades that I use for my cutting system. You can change them out so you can have like decorative edges for my paper cutter. I have like the rings for like mini album type things in here. So just miscellaneous stuff like that. I have a little box that has needles in it. And then I just stuck this in here. I made one of those sewing needle books, and so I made a couple extras that I haven't decorated yet. These are just the bases, because I was going to make a few more of those for gifts, so I just have those sitting in there for now till I get a chance to work on them. And so now I'm going to open up the bottom cupboards. So this is for all my junk journal people that watch me. If you can kind of see this shelf right here, I have like 2 or 3 little things like this separated out. And I put all my junk journal stuff in here. This is the stuff I'm reusing. Like, someone sent me something in this little glassine bag and it was still perfectly good, so I'll reuse it in one of my junk journals. Sometimes I do little junk journal swaps and people make me embellishments, so I stick them in there. And then of course, as we're doing this, I dropped something and I'll just show you guys that. This is with a lot of my paper scraps. I'll just sit and punch out small tags, and so I just stick them in there, and I'll use those on different projects, but just to use up my paper and not throw it away, I'll make little small tags, and these often end up in my junk journals, so I keep them in that drawer. But I do have, again, in this stuff, if you pull it out, some of it's like store-bought ephemera, some of it's stuff I've found, stuff that people have given me. So I have 2 totes like this, or 2 baskets in there. The very bottom here, you guys can kind of see, here's what I was talking about when I have trays, when I work on things. And so in this little bottom sector, I have a couple of like, I'm working on a scrapbook for my niece, so I have some of that stuff. I have like a junk journal kit that I printed off and folded and cut out all the pieces. So stuff I've started but I haven't gotten very far with, I stick in there if it's not currently on my work desk. And then there's also a pull-out drawer in here, and so I keep my circle and oval punches in this drawer just because I use those probably more than any other punches. The next one over, almost exactly the same thing, except for I keep my rectangle and square punches, and I have some scrap paper. Again, you can kind of see my trays that I use. This one I have glue on, and then the bottom one I have mixed media stuff like my gesso and my texture paste. They pull out pretty easy when they're on there. And I usually try and keep a couple extra bottles of my favorite glues, just because I do live in the middle of nowhere, and I hate running out of glue. So, the next one, just the plumbing from the sink, so you guys don't need to see that. And over here, which is kind of my final sector, this is my workstation. And you can kind of see I have my ink pads and markers and different things. So as far as my storage goes for the ink pads, this is an old cassette tape holder, and so I store those in here, and you can kind of see these are my close to my heart ones, and I have the names of the colors written on the side so I can easily see them when I'm working. A couple of my glues I keep in the back corner for easy access. My Stampin' Up! Ones. This little storage set right there is, I think, from Stamp and Storage, which you can find online if you look that up. They sell different storage systems, and that's one of their systems. Here's just another shelf that I found at the thrift store that I painted black. And I just have some more of my ink pads, like my Marvy Matchables and my Tim Holtz Distress ones and my archival inks. If you look up, this is where I record my overhead videos. So if you guys want to know more about that little system, let me know and I can do a video on that. I'm not going to go through every single thing up here, but this is basically all of my, like, I have glue and tape and extra ink pads, my glitters up here, embossing powders, I have markers and my colored pencils and acrylic paints, that kind of stuff. This shelf right here, I have like my crocodile and some stuff that, tools for my Cricut machine. I keep like my envelope punch board, those kind of things here. I have my scoreboard and my cutting mat right there. So now when you go down, also on my desk, if I'm just watching videos or YouTube while I'm crafting, I just set my little laptop right there. It does have a pull-out drawer, which I have like a portable DVD player because sometimes I watch movies. I keep a couple notepads in here just for notes if I want to write notes. And then I think the last things I have to go through are my desk drawers. So this one just has some basic stuff in it. Binder clips and paper clips, and I have an X-Acto knife in there. Some note cards. I have like toothpicks back here because I use those every once in a while for glitter, pencil lead refill things. The next one down, more basic stuff. I just have my stapler and my tape dispensers. I keep my rulers, craft mats. I have a couple different ones in there. And then the very bottom one, I am keeping my flat back pearls, which I have sorted by color. You know, those kind of things in here. This one, just a whole container of flat back pearls. There's a little sector back here that I keep like decorative paper clips that I use in my junk journals once in a while. And then way in the back I have some baggies, like when I've bought, sometimes online at some of the stores you can buy kits that come with laces and trims and extra stuff that match the paper. And so I keep those in here just so if I want them to go with the paper. But if not, I'll eventually sort out that stuff and put them in other spots in my room. But for now, I'm keeping them separate. So I keep them back there. And my last drawers, my tapes. I keep my heat tool, my heat gun right there. I have a wood burning tool, my fuse tool. This drawer, I keep my acrylic blocks and for rubber stamping, and then I have my stamp positioners back there. And then this one's just some miscellaneous stuff. I have some paint brushes. I keep my better paint brushes in here. I have some little clips that once in a while I use, and my brayers. So just miscellaneous stuff. So again, that's my craft room. I'm sorry that it was so long, but I had so many people asking about how I organize certain things, so I just did everything. So thanks so much for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'll do my best to answer, and everybody have a wonderful day and happy crafting. And again, I will post the video of our lake if you're interested right after this. So again, have a great day, everybody, and take care.
Here's a view of our lake off of our dock. As I start to pan the camera, I notice a deer in the woods and zoom in for a closer look. We do live in a quiet bay and are fortunate enough to have only a couple of neighbors in the area. I did film this after a fresh fallen snow, and if the temperatures stay cold, we will most likely have ice on the lake in November and be able to walk on it by December. Our cabin is hidden in the trees on the top of the hill. We do our best to be good landowners and keep the area as natural as possible with lots of trees and local vegetation. One more look at the doe in the woods.